Hello and welcome to Vikings on the Clock, your premier source for Minnesota Vikings draft news, or at the very least speculation. I am your host, Kirby O'Connor, managing editor of PurplePTSD.com, contributor, writer, editor for VikingsTerritory.com, podcast contributor for PurpleTerritoryRadio.com, and joining me tonight again is Kevin Gendron, another contributor to PurplePTSD.com and owner of TheSkullPost.com. You can find him on Twitter at TheSkullPost. How you doing, Kevin?
Doing well, Kirby. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. It's been a few weeks because we've just been scheduling has been crazy. You've been traveling internationally. You are a world traveler now.
Yep. Happy to be back on the mainland. So
You are so cultured. Where did you travel to? I didn't even ask you this before the show. Where did you go?
Greece, actually.
Greece.
Yeah.
That's I mean, that sounds fun.
Yeah. It was a good time. It was a good time, for sure. So.
Well, you missed quite a bit while you were gone. Lot of interesting camp, well, not camp things, but like mini camp and OTA things going on. Some news with Vikings rookies. Let's start at the top. We were going to do undrafteds this week. But let's start at the top with anybody who we think is actually going to make it as an undrafted, because I think we're both on the same page that it's going to be tough for any of this year's undrafteds to make it. But we might want to talk about a few of like last year's undrafteds who have a chance to, make the roster now that they've kind of established themselves in the Zimmer system. That seems to be kind of what happens is like it takes guys a year or two to get like, into the whole game at speed. So yeah, you got anybody you want to throw out there?
Yeah. So like you said, I mean, I feel like even just overall last year, the undrafted class was pretty like high regarded with Holton Hill and Hercules, Mata Afa, and those two guys were supposed to be drafted in like early rounds, mid rounds. So those were two good gets. Jeff Bidet, who's a familiar name as well, blazing speed. So there's like Mike Boone made the team as an undrafted. It was just a very good undrafted class. And you'll see some of those guys compete for sure. We can circle back to them. But as for this year, I guess like 3 or 4 names that I think of that have maybe a shot. Jake Browning, we mentioned before the show. We were just talking. We paid him so much money, so would be interesting to see if he can make the team. The Vikings generally carry 3 QBs, and it looks like Sean Mannion's probably going to make the team just based off veteran presence. So it might be Browning or Sloter. Just so Jake Browning might be able to fit in there as it progresses throughout the offseason. Davion Davis, I've seen like the wideout has done a pretty good job, but I'd be shocked if he made the team just because it seems like there's like a logjam of trying to fit 6 guys in. I think there's not like an immediate depth after Thielen and Diggs, but there's kind of like a lot of like the same person, and I just feel like that will be able to get through there.
It has been the subject of many internal like debates and many like Twitter debates. Pretty much any time that Ian Paraguay releases like his 53-man roster projection, we have like the like 25 tweet long like conversation about his like list of wide receivers after Diggs and Thielen. So and like obviously like Jeff Badet is Joe's favorite guy. Like he's like, oh, he's gonna make the team just because of his speed. Um, Dylan Mitchell is, I think, a lot of people are like, he's gonna make it because he's like the most pro ready like rookie receiver that we have. And then like everybody's kind of a toss up between keeping Treadwell and Chad Beebe's going to make the roster more than likely, but keeping Treadwell, Brandon Zalestra for whatever reason, people like
Taylor.
Yeah, oh yeah, and Jordan Taylor, who looks like he's for now the wide receiver 3. So yeah, it's just been a lot of debate. So it would be interesting to see anybody else make it in into that room out from like outside. It'll be interesting to see how many they like carry on the practice squad even, because they've got quite a few like extra receivers that are like practice squad eligible still. Like BC Johnson is going to be eligible, obviously. Davis, like you said, Alexander Hollins. It's such like a weird like because obviously we've got like so much top end talent. Like Diggs and Thielen are the I will say it the best 1-2 punch in the NFL when both healthy.
Yeah.
Um, but then like after that, it's like you have no idea what they're gonna do after that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Um, Davion Davis might make it as like a. Am I frozen right there on you? There
You
we
were,
go.
but it's no big deal. Don't worry about it.
um, the Davion Davis like might be a practice squad. Like we said, it's just gonna be hard to leap all those guys. It's like those top two, and then there's like six more, and he'd have to somehow be like the seventh. He's probably like the ninth right now, but he's a guy to probably watch for the practice squad. Um, and then two other guys, and then I'll let you go off of who I've said, or if you have guys you have your eye on. Kari Blasingame, the fullback from Vanderbilt. If it's time to move on from CJ Ham, I doubt it, but you know, it's just like a lesser position, a little bit more replaceable. I could see that happening if he impresses in camp. And then lastly, Isaiah Wharton, just because the Vikings solely has nothing to do with necessarily Isaiah Wharton, but the fact that he plays safety, he's a safety out of Rutgers, where the Vikings need a fourth safety behind Anthony Harris, and Jaron Curse. Um, and they tend to have this like pattern of signing someone that they sign from like rookie tryouts that eventually makes the roster. So he's another name to just watch as camp and mini camps start to go on. So those are the four from this year that might have a shot at practice squad or the active roster. Who do you like? If the same guys, anyone different?
Yeah, I'll mention Wharton just because I think he's actually like the fifth. Well, okay, he's like the fourth like safety, but he's the fifth like safety because
Mm-hmm.
Jaron Curse isn't a safety. He's a big nickel. Like slot guy, so he's not really a safety, even though he's listed as a safety. Like he could spot play or like be the third safety in sets, but I don't think he's a pure safety. And then Marcus Epps is the other guy that like he was seen first team reps at one point in OTAs, so like he's up there because he's the rookie out of Wyoming that they just got and they like a lot. But Warden I'll mention because yeah, I think he has a very good chance to make the squad just because like you need a bunch of defensive backs to make the team, and like even if he doesn't make the team, if he's sitting on the practice squad there's a good chance that he plays on like any of the defensive backs really, but like him, obviously he's impressed them enough to get a signing out of like the rookie tryouts, but like uh, he has a chance to make the team just like at any point in the year just because of how many injuries happen to those like defensive backs and how thin we are going to be like to start the year already because like you don't have Holton Hill for the first 4 games of the year and you don't know like Mike Hughes is supposed to be ready to go, but who knows if he'll be 100% and he might like be scratched the first few games of the year just to like keep him healthy, so it'll be interesting to see um, how that all works out. And then I had one I was gonna mention. Where are you? Um, doo, doo, doo. Oh, maybe Wharton was the one I was gonna mention. He must have been. I'll go back to Jake Browning then. Because Jake Browning is like another like interesting because everybody's like always interested in the quarterback like battles at camp, and like normally for Vikings fans it's because we don't know who our QB1 is gonna be. Like we're like who's gonna start this year? I have no idea.
How does Teddy look?
How does Teddy look?
Yeah,
Uh,
hashtag Teddy look. That was like the trending like when Teddy was like um going out for QB1. I feel like that's like what brings me back when we don't know who's going to be QB1s. Like, how's Teddy looking, camp? How's Teddy looking?
Yeah, but I mean, that's oh, it's so nice. Like as much as people want to criticize Cousins, like it's so nice to know that you've got your QB1. But like there's that battle for the QB2 or even QB3 spot because like Mannion and Browning have been getting like all the reps, I guess, at OTAs and minicamp. But I hear that that's like mostly because Kyle Sloter, like they know exactly what they have in him. Like they've seen him for a few years now. Like they know who he is as a player, and they're like they're like ready to have him be there as the backup if need be. But they want to see what they have in Mannion, who they just brought in, and Browning, who they paid a decent amount of money for an undrafted. Um, but yeah, just like interesting some of the battles that are going to be happening. Mata Afa is another one that he was seeing like I think he was seeing a few first team reps, and he's like another one that he had an injury last year that like he couldn't play, but everybody was so excited about him because he was supposed to be like a highly touted prospect, and he fell to us because of like injuries. Um, so it's I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. We always kind of see this renaissance like with the Zimmer players where they're like they like don't make the team or they're on the practice squad the first year and then like all of a sudden like either second year or third year they're like making impacts in like games. Um like one that I can think of right off the top of my head is like Tayshawn Bauer,
Mhm.
is
Eric Wilson.
Eric Wilson, like just and especially defensive guys like they just like come in and they make I don't know they're like they don't like they miss obviously but they seem to have a higher hit rate. Um, for like really really late round guys, and maybe that's just bias of I pay attention to the Vikings and not as closely to the rest of the league. But yeah, that's Mata Afa. I think is like the
Yeah,
one that
the
I'm most excited about.
yeah they and Zimmer like very like prematurely like almost compared him to Geno Atkins in a few ways. He didn't call him Geno Atkins, but he brought him up in the same sentence. But I was just if you look at the when we were talking about this year's like undrafted free agents, it's like yeah, like maybe four like have a chance like practice squad, maybe Browning, maybe one makes the team. If you go back to last year's undrafted class was like unprecedented for how strong it was. It had Rock Thomas, who he's in limbo right now. Mata Afa, Holton Hill, Jeff Bidet, and Mike Boone. The five guys who were practice squad or on the active roster. So that was a very impressive class. And I think, if you want to, Mata Afa towards ACL early in camp last year. He's basically an undrafted free agent this year, and I think he definitely has the best chance, especially after the early comparisons, because it's unlike Zimmer to go out and do that. So he's someone to look at the three technique spot, maybe a third down specialist when you need to rush the passer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of uncertainty at that defensive tackle like position. Because like after like you've got Linval, obviously he's gonna play the oh I always mix it up. He's the one technique, right? He's
Nose. One technique, I just call him the nose, the big one.
okay. He's the big one. And then the three technique is kind of like a toss up. Like I'm pretty sure it's Shamar Stefan is like the like what people like think is like he's got the in obviously because we signed him back. Um, but like there's like Jaleel Johnson, Jalen Holmes. Like there's just like so many guys that we've been waiting to see at that like defensive tackle spot, and now you add Mata Afa to the mix. Like there's gonna be an exciting battle. Like there's so I mean, and always there always is. I get so excited about training camp. But like there's gonna be an exciting battle at defensive tackle behind Linval, and I've seen some like hot take things that are like we're gonna cut Shamar Stefan
Saw
and
that
like
too.
Mata Appa is gonna be the starter, or like Armin Watts is gonna. I didn't even mention Armin Watts, and like they're like people are crazy. First of all, um, but it's so nice to see like how much talent that we like cultivate on that defensive line.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about the wideouts earlier. It's like you have your two likely starters, except for the people saying that Stefan will get cut, which would just be ridiculous because we just signed him. It would be dead cap. Like it would just make no sense. Also, he could kind of play Linval's spot, so he has the versatility to do both. He's not going to get cut. Um, I think like the D tackle battles, like those secondary guys, is going to be similar to the wideouts, where it's like, okay, there's like 7 guys that can make this roster, but we only have room for 4 or 5 of them. And yeah, Hercules. Let's call him. I'm Mata Afa is like, I feel like I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Like the guy's name's Hercules. Let's just call him Hercules, right?
We just call him Herc.
Herc.
Hercules.
Hercules.
Yeah, and it's just like crazy to think like there's times where I like almost want to say that like also we don't have to carry as many defensive tackles and just like slide Everson in, like similar to how we used Robeson
Yeah.
at the end of his career, which is just like, I don't know, it's sexy to me to have 3 defensive ends in to rush the passer plus Linval Joseph.
And Anthony Barr. Then boom.
Have Anthony Barr drop down. Oh my goodness. Like I haven't like if you are listening to this or watching this and you haven't gotten yourself hyped for training camp, like go and watch some highlight videos of like just classic Vikings like good things. Like don't even focus on the bad things, cuz I was kind of in this is like general Viking stuff, not rookie stuff, but like I was in this like mode where I was like kind of pissed off. I was like kind of like upset about the team. Like for a couple weeks there, I was just like, oh shit, whatever. I think it was because like we did a roundtable about like what one moment you would change in the history of the Vikings, and like I was trying to find one. I didn't end up writing one because I just couldn't find one that like was like unique enough, if that makes any sense. But I was looking at like all the like bad things that happened, like the 2009 NFC Championship game, 1998, like even some of the stuff that I wasn't born for, like the original Hail Mary, like the push off, and like um drafting Christian Ponder, drafting Troy Williamson, and like I was just like so upset, and like I edited Joe's piece of like trading Randy Moss, and I was like just pissed off. And then like a few nights ago, I was on YouTube, and I was I showed my wife the butt fumble because someone referenced it in something we were watching, and she hadn't seen it. So we watched Mark Sanchez's butt fumble, and the very first suggested on YouTube after that is like Minneapolis Miracle home radio announcers. So it's like I was just like, it's in my suggested. I gotta watch it. I gotta spend my 2.5 minutes watching this. So I watched it, and I just got so excited for like the whole like possibility of this season. And I like just like started like binging like highlights, just like Moss's like Thanksgiving game and like Adrian Peterson, just like highlights like crazy. So if you feel depressed in this doldrum of the off season, what I'm saying is go on YouTube and find good moments and watch them, because it'll make you feel better.
Exactly. And we're here to tell you that we have the optimism of the season. Look at all the guys we just mentioned. We have too many good guys. We don't know who's going to make the roster.
We don't know who's gonna be here. We've got an extra fullback, and we don't know what to do with him. That was a spicy take, by the way. Like we just kind of walked right past it, but like CJ Ham is beloved as a Minnesota native, and you just like
too.
you were just like he's gonna. You didn't say he's gonna. I won't put that word in your mouth, but you said Blazing Game is like a guy who might have a chance at the roster if they want to move on from CJ Ham.
He has a exactly like. I'm just trying to find an undrafted guy to make it through, and fullback seems like as good as any. I don't want to call CJ Ham replaceable. I'm not going to go that far, but he might be.
I mean, anybody's replaceable if the guy behind him is good enough.
True.
Mike Remmers should have been replaceable last year.
Yeah.
But another thing that we did recently, what I did recently, was I wrote a piece on like 5 prospects, early prospects to keep an eye on. And I had like a countdown at some point of like how many days away we are from college football. It's like in the 60s or something now, like before the first like college football game of the year. So like I'm getting excited about college ball too. But I wrote about 5 prospects to watch, and I'll kind of talk about a few of those, and then like you can talk about you got like a couple that you can fire off.
Perfect.
Um, the first one I'll talk about is like the first one I mentioned in my article was Justin Herbert, who's the quarterback over here in Oregon. Who like who he decided not to enter the draft last year. And he probably would have been like one of the top quarterbacks in last year's draft, which admittedly had like rather weak quarterback class. But like he's staying for his senior year to get more polish and also to play with his brother, who's like a rookie tight end, or not a rookie, a freshman tight end, for the Ducks. So like, if the Vikings completely tank and like they want to move, they want to be ready to move on from Kirk Cousins, Justin Herbert is like my pick for the quarterback that they should take out of the draft. So all those Cousins haters, you can love Justin Herbert. Um,
And we were mentioning it before. The one guy I mentioned, and it might be if the Vikings do well this year, because I think the two guys at the top of the draft people talk about QBs next year are Herbert and Tua.
hmm
And Jake Fromm kind of gets lost in the shuffle there in my mind, and he might be a guy that's like, you you made the playoffs, you won the Super Bowl, but you can trade up and into like the middle of the first and go grab Jake Fromm. At least like it's the preseason projections, that stuff changes like crazy, but he's someone who's got lost in the shuffle. And after his freshman year, he was in the national championship and was destroying the Alabama defense. So he's someone that I really like, and might be is just kind of like not being talked about, flying under the radar at QB.
Yeah, I think like that QB is such a weird like position to scout like in the college game because there's like a few there's like usually like 4 or 5 guys that everybody's like these guys are elite and you need to grab them in the top 10 or 5 and then like everybody else is like well you can grab this guy in the 4th or 5th round. It's like okay. So I it's just interesting to me to see like the quarterback position and see like what success guys come from. And like obviously like usually higher drafted guys end up like more successful. Usually first round picks do well. But then you have the guys who just like completely miss. Like there's still so many guys who miss from first round like quarterbacks. And I feel like it's higher than other positions, but maybe it's not. I don't have the numbers on it.
Yeah, agreed. So those I think there's three. If the Vikes do go QB next year, it's likely because Cousins didn't do so hot. So I think From, Tua, and Herbert are the three guys to look at, and Tua will be, unless we literally have the first overall pick, will not be the guy
We are gonna tank for Tua.
for Tua.
Um, Yeah, the other guys I mentioned, I had a defensive tackle from Auburn on there just because like if they want to move on from Linval Joseph, that's totally possible. Even though like we mentioned so much like talent that we have on the roster there, like defensive tackle is one of those positions that I feel like our defense needs to have like one premier player at defensive tackle to like make sure like to make that whole thing work, especially against the run. So if nobody emerges this year to be that guy, and like either this year or next year, even like, because Linval Joseph realistically is reaching the tail end of his very very good career. So I was thinking defensive tackle. This guy projected as like a pretty good nose. Um, I can't remember his name right now because I'm
Is it?
awful.
I did not read your article, and I apologize. Was it Derek Brown from?
Yes.
Does that
Yep.
sound right?
Yep.
The only reason
That's what
the only I can read your mind. We're that good.
his name's so generic. I didn't think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's like might even be wrong. Yeah, he was the only reason I recognize his name. McShay like mocked him to the Vikes last year. So look at you on your game, because um he was like supposed to come out and he ended up returning to school. So I don't know. That's all I know about him. So that's all I got.
He looked good. I don't know. We'll see what happens. The other guy I had on there was a Nebraska defensive back, whose name escapes me. I feel like he has the same name as someone else, but he's big. He's physical. He played with Spielman's son, although that doesn't seem to be an indicator of anything, even though we keep pointing to it. We're just like, this guy played with Rick Spielman's son. He has
Devin Stanley Morgan Jr.
I have
Take
I does he have has he yet drafted a guy that has played with his son? Like
No, I don't think so. I think he'll just end up signing his son or whatever.
I mean, I'm okay with that kind of nepotism as long as he plays well.
Yeah. Where'd Kyle Shermer end up? He didn't end up in New York, did he?
No, he didn't. He was drafted by somebody. Kyle Shermer.
Chiefs.
The Chiefs. Oh, he's gonna be the starter. He's gonna beat out Pat Mahomes.
Definitely.
No, Kyle Shermer was another one that I had mocked as possibly going to the Vikings in like the 7th round if they were looking for a quarterback at that point, and he was there.
Yeah.
I don't know how well he's going to do as far as like being like a starter, but he I think could be like a very good career backup if he's got the same like mind as his father. So,
Yeah, no doubt.
the other three guys I had named on that list are kind of biased picks, but they were all Minnesota Gophers.
Blake
But
Cashman.
with reason. No, not this time, but because he's not there anymore. Tyler Johnson, first of all, like the receiver, because he's right now projecting as one of the top receivers to come into the draft. He's so good. His route running reminds me of like Diggs and Thielen. Like that is the kind of guy that he is, and he had a like six. I won't say a number. It's over 1,000 yards last year with like 2 rotating quarterbacks because the Gophers never have like one set quarterback. And like the year before, he also almost hit 1,000 and had like 10 touchdowns. Which is like crazy. I think it's crazy that like a receiver at Minnesota can ever have those numbers just because of how like poor the quarterback play has been for years.
Yeah.
I
No
think
doubt.
he's the first Minnesota Gophers receiver to go for 1,000 since Eric Decker. So
Good company.
good company. And the other two were Shannon Brooks and Rodney Smith, the running backs from the Gophers. Both were injured last year and received medical red shirts for another year of eligibility. But they both have rushed for. I don't think Brooks has rushed for 1,000 yet, but he almost did the 1 year, and then Smith has 2 1,000-yard seasons. Not to mention the Gophers also have their other guy who stepped in last year and ran for 1,000 or almost 1,000. So like they've got 3 running backs who are like could be premier backs somewhere else, and they're all going to be running out of the same backfield.
Love it. While you go the Minnesota route, so I mentioned Fromm, the other guy, I think this would be my dream pick, and I think it might cause a little bit of chaos or just very much, or at least be a very interesting locker room if you went. I would love to see the Vikings take Trevon Diggs next year, corner out of Bama. Stephon Diggs' brother. Trey Waynes is potentially gone. Mackenzie Alexander's possibly gone. Rhodes, Trevon Diggs, and Mike Hughes are your corners, and that's just really fun.
I think it's awesome to think about like the personality that would be in that locker room, because like if he's anything like Stephon Diggs is already, like
Yeah.
the
And
like
he did the Redskins poster this year. Were you
oh
when
yeah,
he posted like Diggs in a Redskins jersey, and like the internet like freaked out, myself included.
Diggs
Uh,
Diggs for Trent Williams straight up.
never, never, never. According to Trevon Diggs, maybe, but I think it'd be really cool. He's a great player from Bama. He returns punts for them too. He was out last year. I think he hurt his ankle. He's supposed to be a top corner prospect. Would just be really cool to, see the two of them together and go that route. So that to me would be super exciting and potentially practical at the same time.
I think it would be. I think it's just like great to I don't know. I think it's you see how hard like Stephon Diggs has worked in his career to get where he is. And like, yeah, he didn't show up for like OTAs. Like I think he made it to one day of OTAs, and everybody was like, "What's wrong with Stephon Diggs? He's tweeting all these weird things, like they're cryptic, and I don't understand." It's like, have you ever read any of Stephon Diggs' tweets? Like, none of the things he tweets make sense.
No sense. He's one of, if not my favorite Viking. He just like I think if the Vikes took Trevon Diggs, it would be like the only way the fan base wouldn't freak out at another first round corner, because I think it would just be so exciting and people would be like, all right, like let's do it. This is
If
cool.
they don't extend, so if they don't extend, so if they don't find a way to extend Trey Waynes or like move on from Xavier Rhodes and extend Trey Waynes, like if they don't find a way to rectify that situation, and you don't have, and like Mackenzie Alexander, Mike Hughes, and Holton Hill all remain, like, I'm not going to say they're question marks because they're very good players, but if they don't look like they are going to be quality enough to step up into the next like slot, into the 2, or the 1 potentially, even when injuries happen, like, totally understandable if the team wants to get another first round corner. Um, but like, I don't know. I'm especially excited to see if Mike Hughes can come back and be healthy. I know he's probably going to have hamstring issues because that usually follows like the season after like an ACL injury.
Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, exactly. Like Dalvin Cook. So like, I think Hughes is going to have. This is pure speculation on this year, but I think Hughes is going to have a tough time staying healthy. So that's going to give a lot of opportunities to other guys, but I don't think that means that you give up on Mike Hughes. Um, Cook gets labeled with injury prone. I think he had a few injuries in college too. So like, yeah, but also when an ACL injury happens, usually the next year is followed by hamstring issues before they're like fully like, unless you're Adrian Peterson, who's not human. I am fully convinced that Adrian Peterson is some sort of cyborg or alien being that came to Earth to play football. Um, you're gonna have some sort of issues the next year. So like, this is me defending Dalvin Cook as not necessarily injury prone. Now, if he gets hurt this year, I will fully rescind that statement.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook's in for a big year, I think, this year, and what's kind of exciting is the Vikings will hopefully get their first full year of Dalvin Cook, first full year of Mike Hughes, and first full year of Garrett Bradbury. It's like they haven't had full impact from their top picks the past 3 years. I think if you go 4 years, that's Treadwell. So did I do that right?
uh,
So they have not had first pick since maybe Trey Waynes, if I'm
yeah,
thinking correct.
yeah, and nobody liked, and everybody hated Waynes when he started too, because he got some penalties because he's a
Yep.
physical corner who didn't quite understand, or like he guys would be able to bust like slants on him like really easily. I think was like my biggest like criticism of him. Like he was giving up the inside really easily. Um, so like I think it's interesting to look at the Vikings and like the success that they've had. Because even like despite not having highly drafted rookies like come through in their first year or two, um, yeah, I think it's just interesting. And it really like it makes me excited in a way, but also nervous because it means that like injuries have derailed us like so many times.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. It's hard not to be excited about this team right now because of like, especially as like a fan and trying to remove all your like, even like trying to remove all your bias. You're just like, this team is 1 year removed from going 13-3 and making an NFC Championship game, and are possibly a good quarterback away from like a Super Bowl in that year. Um, because I don't care who you are, that game was at least mostly on Case Keenum. Like the pick six changed absolutely everything. I will fight you to the death if you think that that wasn't the deciding factor in that game. Um, but like, I don't know. There's still so much talent, and like so many guys are like proven. Um, but it's just a matter of like, can we hit on a few of these guys that need to make impacts? And like you said, Mike Hughes, Dalvin Cook, Garrett Bradbury are like the three like big ones for me, like this year especially. Like if we can get a good year out of Garrett Bradbury and like solidify that offensive line, like this, and like Dalvin Cook can run pretty decently, like this offense is gonna grind out games and like win games because the defense is gonna be as good as they have been in the past. Outside of maybe the first 4 weeks of the season because Holton Hill is like out and we don't really know what's happening with the defensive backs, and Xavier Rhodes will probably go out at least once a game in each of those games. And but I don't know. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Me too, Kirby. I think it's easy to drink the off-season Kool-Aid, but I think I know we're biased, but if I were to think, I have some form of perspective, the continuity of the defense is there. The defense is going to be good, and the offense is all back. It looks like you've added another weapon with Irv Smith. We didn't even mention Irv Smith. You've both bolstered the O line. You've got Gary Kubiak in there. Like all the pieces are in place. If they can't do anything this year, it's kind of time to look in the mirror. I won't say
Yeah,
blow it up. Just look in the mirror before you blow it up.
I think yeah, and I think like the team that has been built is so good outside of like one area. Like it and like this year is the first year that I'm like we might have actually put together like a good offensive line that isn't all like aging like veterans that we're hoping work out, or like undrafted guys who like we're hoping work out. We're like we know what we have in like we know we have it in Reef and O'Neal and Elfline, and then you pretty much know what you have in Josh Klein. Obviously, like we hope he does better than he did before. But then you took an actual offensive lineman in the first round who's supposed to and you're like putting him in a scheme where he is like supposed to be the focus and supposed to be like the best offensive lineman. Obviously, still left tackle is like the most important. But a zone scheme, like you need a really good center to run that scheme. Um, so like I'm just hoping that like this is the year that we put together an offensive line, and like a big part of that is staying healthy. Which is why this is one of my final points is that like this whole thing about Trent Williams has been like talked about a lot, and like Ian loves to talk about it on Twitter and talk about it internally, and he loves to talk about how GMs value draft picks too highly. I don't think they do, especially not where Trent Williams is concerned, because Trent Williams, yes, has an extra year of team control from the Redskins. And yes, he like is 30, which isn't terribly old for an offensive lineman, but he has not played a full season since 2013. When he's healthy, he is one of the best left tackles in the game. However, for the Vikings especially, I think the most important part of a left tackle is being healthy. Like having Reef on that side, who's played like most of the season, because Williams only played 10 games last year, and I think he played 13 the year before that. Like to miss 6 games, if we missed Reef for 6 games last year, we would not have we would have been like 2 and whatever, because that's how
Yep.
bad the rest of the offensive line was. So I think like Trent Williams is a great player when he's healthy and on the field, but like he's not going to be on the field like a good amount of the time. And obviously like if you get 13 to 16 games out of him, that maybe is acceptable, but like I would not roll the dice on it, and I value draft picks much higher than Ian seems to, because like second rounders and third rounders, like those are like where you build your team, like outside of like the first round, like star players, like second, third, fourth is like where you build your team. And I don't think giving up one of those, potential guys for a guy who's aging and also costs more than Reef, is the way to go at all.
I'm like kind of with I'd be mixed if they got Trent Williams. I'd be excited because you think about him being healthy and he's a stud and definitely better than Reef. So like could he be the missing piece? I'm like almost willing to take that risk if it were to like kind of come to fruition and heat up. And it looks like if they were able to get rid of Reef, the cap space is fine now because of what the Kyle Rudolph restructure cleared up. But I don't know. I don't know what I'd give up for him. I think I'd like potentially go to a second, and we kind of had this back and forth too. Because we have 2/3 next year, you can almost take that gamble. And I know that's not equivalent to a second, but I'd be very intrigued if they did it, and I'd be very excited about like how aggressive they were about getting a top 5 left tackle when healthy.
It would certainly be interesting, and I think it would show that like this front office is like ready to like build an offensive line and take that chance. I just don't know if Trent Williams is the guy that like that we're looking for there. And like my big concern is the fact that he hasn't played a full season since 2013. Now, obviously, that's kind of like cherry picking a stat because like I don't know how many seasons Reef has played like all 16 games, but he's played like 13 or 14 or 15. If he like my biggest issue is that Williams only played 10 games last year. So like I really like
You want Rashad Hill starting 6 games?
yeah, like do you want Rashad Hill starting 6 games or do you want like at right tackle and essentially shifting Brian O'Neill over to left tackle for 6 games? And like if that happens at the end of the season and you make the playoffs, like now it's more than 6 games. Now it's not 6 games at the end of the season, and then like the most important like 3 or 4 games like of the whole thing, because like you want to win a championship. Like that's the expectation of this team right now.
Yep. Trent Williams, Riley Reef has missed 4 games the past 2 years. Trent Williams has missed 9. It's a big difference.
So almost double.
Yeah. Boom. Justified.
My point is right. No, I'm totally like I'm totally like up for discussion, and I think it's an intriguing one to have. And I think Williams, I would welcome Williams with open arms and hope that everything works out. I'm very wary of like picking. I'm very wary of taking any players who like miss time like and that are old. Now this comes after me like defending Dalvin Cook and like Mike Hughes and everything, but like as once a player hits like 28 to 30, like and he's like missing significant time, I think like that's when I'm like, ooh, I have concerns about this.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't think I have anything else. I just wanted to rant about the Trent Williams thing. I was watching Austin Cutting highlights. He looks like a good long snapper. I don't know what to say about that. Like I have been trying to find something to talk about with Austin Cutting outside of like can he even play because of the Air Force like contract obligation to serve like the 2 years. Like I don't know what to talk about because he's a long snapper.
Yep. I got nothing for you. I haven't watched him. I don't even know what a good long snapper would look like as long as the ball gets put down, you know. So
Yeah, and like I don't know of anybody outside of like actual like football coaches who understand like who could probably look at film and say like that's a good long snapper. Like unless they're obviously like it's kind of like I mean it's kind of like off at like the old adage with offensive linemen is like a good game is where you don't get mentioned. Like a good long snapper doesn't get remarked upon because he doesn't mess up his job the like six like the 8 to 10 times that he has to do it a game.
yeah,
So
totally. You keep watching. Let us know if you find anything.
I'll let everybody know if anybody wants to send me like anything that makes a good long snapper. I'm certain it's out there. I'm certain there are articles and like analytics and scientific proof that long snappers are measurable.
Yep.
I just don't know where to start with them. Um But I think that's all we got for this week. It's been kind of a shorter one, but also like we're kind of in the doldrums. We're hitting the slow point because we were gonna hit camp in about a month here now. Um, yeah, so like we're just kind of hanging out until
No, I
camp, but
mean,
we'll start talking about college football next time. I'm not gonna say next week. I want it to be next week, but schedules are crazy, and I have a child, and people are traveling internationally, and um, so we'll see.
yep.
But this has been another episode of Vikings on the Clock. I have been your host, Kirby O'Connor, at KJOcon14 on Twitter, managing editor, purpleptsd.com, all the other titles that Joe has given me. And this fine gentleman is Kevin Gendron, owner of theskullpost.com, on Twitter at theskullpost. Um, Again, thanks for being on. It's always fun to have you on. I feel like I dominated this one with all my rants about stuff that like I haven't been allowed to do a podcast recently, so I needed a platform to rant about my Vikings feelings.
I'm glad we could give it to you. Don't worry, I felt like I got everything I needed out there too, so I'm satisfied.
That's all that matters is that you leave this podcast satisfied. And
There
with
you
that, skull.
skull.